The magistrate's pen froze mid-signature on the conservatorship order. His eyes went wide, darting from the evaluation documents to my face and back again. "Your Honor?" he whispered, barely audible. "Justice Walsh?" The iron gavel? The color drained from my daughter Jennifer's face. Her boyfriend, Derek Mitchell, the private investigator she'd hired to document my supposed decline, went perfectly still. The attorney they'd retained, some eager young associate from a downtown firm, looked confused, glancing between us. Magistrate David Park, who'd been my law clerk 15 years ago, set down his pen with a sharp click. He stood, smoothed his robes, and looked at me with an expression I recognized well from my own courtroom days. Respect, concern, and dawning realization. "Miss Walsh, Mr. Mitchell," he said carefully, "I need to speak with the petitioner privately. Standard protocol for capacity evaluations of this nature." Jennifer shot to her feet. "Now wait just a minute. We're here because my mother isn't capable of making sound decisions anymore. You can't just—" "Miss Walsh." David's voice could have frozen the Charles River. "I'm the judicial officer here. If you want me to rule on this petition, I'll conduct this hearing my way. Otherwise, you're free to refile in another session." They left. The door closed, and David turned to me with eyes that had reviewed 1,000 case files under my supervision. "You're here voluntarily?" he asked quietly. I smiled, straightening in my chair, dropping the slight tremor I'd been affecting in my hands. "Do I look like I've lost capacity to you, David?" "Not even remotely." He sat down across from me, judicial mask slipping just enough to show the attorney underneath. "I assisted on 3 of your most complex cases. The Patterson estate litigation, the Medicaid fraud prosecution, the guardianship reform initiative. You taught me to spot patterns, to see when something doesn't add up." He paused. "This doesn't add up." "No," I agreed. "It doesn't." "Good God, Justice Walsh, what's happening here? Bad enough that I need a paper trail. Bad enough that I'm willing to sit through this humiliating process. Bad enough that when this goes before the state bar, I want every judicial officer to have signed off on my competency." I pulled a small USB drive from my purse. "This is encrypted. Inside is everything I've documented over the past 4 months. If something happens to me before this ends, you know who to contact." David took it, slipped it into his robe pocket. "The Attorney General's office. Elder Protection Unit. Among others." I sat back, let my shoulders slump again, added back the tremor. "Now, let's give Jennifer exactly what she's expecting. Ask me what year it is. Let me hesitate. Let me seem uncertain." 4 months earlier, I'd been in my study in Beacon Hill when I overheard them. My townhouse sits on a quiet street near the State House, 3 floors of books and memories accumulated over 30 years on the Massachusetts bench. That particular evening in August, I was reviewing a friend's appellate brief near the open window. I hadn't meant to eavesdrop, but when you spend 3 decades presiding over trials, you learn to recognize when someone's building a case, even against you. Derek's voice carried from the garden below. "She's 71, Jen. She's slowing down. Did you see her forget where she parked at the grocery store last week?" Everyone forgets where they parked. That was Jennifer, my daughter, my only child, the civil litigator I'd been so proud of. You need something more concrete. She's alone in this house. All that property value just sitting here. This place is worth $2 million, easy. Plus her pension, the investment accounts, the life insurance. You said yourself she's got close to $1 million liquid. My hands stilled on the brief I was holding. "My mother worked her entire life," Jennifer said, and I could hear something calculating in her voice. "She deserves to enjoy her retirement. Wouldn't it be better if she was somewhere with support nearby? Memory care facilities have medical staff, activities, security. Memory care is expensive," Derek said. 15 grand a month at least. Not as expensive as maintaining a house like this. Think about it, Derek. If something happened to her, if she fell and couldn't communicate her wishes, I'm her only family. I'd have to make decisions anyway. Wouldn't it be better to have everything in order now while she can still sign papers? I stood very still, a paperclip I'd been holding pressing into my palm. "Conservatorship," Derek said slowly, "for medical decisions and financial. I know a lawyer who specializes in elder law. He could draw up the petition this week, and I can document the decline." That's what I do, Jen. I document things. A few photos of unpaid bills, missed appointments, confused behavior in public. Build the case that she needs help. She does need help, Jennifer said, but her voice lacked conviction. She's forgetting things, getting confused. Of course she is, Derek said smoothly. And we're going to help her. We're going to make sure she's safe, that her assets are protected. That's what good family does. I didn't move until I heard Derek's car pull away 20 minutes later. Then I went to my desk, sat down, and poured myself 2 fingers of bourbon. Lafroig, the single malt my late husband Thomas had introduced me to 40 years ago. Jennifer was 45 years old. I'd put her through Harvard Law, helped with her first apartment in Cambridge, supported her through a difficult divorce 3 years ago, and now she was discussing how to declare me incompetent so she could access my assets. I hadn't forgotten where I'd parked. I'd parked on the 4th level of the garage, Section D, Slot 47, exactly where I always parked when I went to that particular Whole Foods. But I'd taken a moment to check my phone before leaving the store, and Jennifer had found me in the parking lot. She'd assumed I was confused. She'd created a narrative. I made myself finish the brief I was reviewing, then I opened my laptop and started my own investigation. 25 years as a trial judge, then 5 years on the state Supreme Judicial Court, had taught me one thing. Everyone leaves a trail. Derek Mitchell, age 38, licensed private investigator in Massachusetts for 6 years. Before that, a PI in Florida. Before that, Rhode Island. He moved cities every few years, always staying ahead of something. I called in a favor from a colleague who still had contacts at the Massachusetts State Police. "Elizabeth," I said when she answered, "I need a background check. Completely off the record. Can you help?" 2 days later, I had my answer. Derek Mitchell had been investigated 3 times for elder exploitation schemes. Never charged, but he'd been the common denominator in 3 separate cases where elderly people had their assets drained by family members who'd hired him to document concerns. The families had all used the same elder law attorney to file conservatorship petitions. He was running a system. And Jennifer had fallen into his orbit exactly 7 months ago, right after her law firm let her go. She hadn't told me about losing her position. I'd found out through the legal community grapevine. Jennifer had debt. Her divorce had been expensive. And then the job loss. She'd made some bad investments, trying to recover. I would have helped her if she'd asked. Instead, she'd found Derek, and Derek had shown her another solution. I started documenting everything. Every visit where Jennifer would casually mention how a colleague's parent had gotten confused and hurt themselves. Every time Derek would stop by with Jennifer and take photos of my house, my desk, my medicine cabinet, every concerned question about whether I'd paid my property taxes on time. I had, of course. I'd been paying bills since before Jennifer was born. I also started playing a role. As a judge, you learn to control the courtroom. You shape the narrative, manage the record, ensure that every ruling has support in the evidence. This was no different. So, I started forgetting things. Small things at first. Where I'd put my reading glasses, what day my housekeeper came. I'd ask Jennifer the same question twice during a phone call, then apologize. "Sorry, dear. You know how it is at my age." I watched Jennifer's concern become certainty, watched Derek's patience become urgency, and I documented every single interaction with timestamps and video from the security cameras I'd quietly upgraded throughout my home. The break point came in October. Jennifer brought over a homemade dinner. "I made your favorite, Mom, chicken piccata with angel hair pasta." She set the containers on my kitchen counter. Derek helped. He's really wonderful, you know. So attentive. I ate the dinner. It was good. Jennifer had always been a skilled cook, something she'd learned from her father. Derek had helped with the seasoning, apparently. The next morning, I woke up groggy, disoriented. My mouth felt like cotton. I recognized the feeling immediately. Benzodiazepines. I'd seen this presentation hundreds of times in my courtroom. DUI cases, mostly, where defendants claimed they'd been drugged. I knew the symptoms. Diazepam or alprazolam, probably. Not enough to require hospitalization, just enough to make me confused, suggestible, vulnerable. My phone showed 5 missed calls from Jennifer. She'd also stopped by, according to my doorbell camera, had knocked repeatedly, had used a key to let herself in. When had I given her a key? I checked my key drawer. My spare was missing. She'd taken it weeks ago, probably during one of her concerned visits. I pulled up my interior camera footage. There was Jennifer, letting herself in at 8:30 a.m., calling my name, coming upstairs to my bedroom, taking photos of me asleep at 9:15 in the morning, looking concerned, looking sad, looking like a devoted daughter worried about her declining mother, then going through my study, photographing documents, making notes on her phone. Derek appeared on the footage at 9:45, helping her photograph my desk, my files, my medication bottles. I saved everything to 3 separate encrypted drives. Then I sat at my kitchen table and had what I can only describe as a judicial crisis. Jennifer was my daughter, my only child. Thomas and I had tried for years to have her. She'd been our miracle, arriving when I was 37 and had nearly given up hope. I'd taken her to her first day of school, taught her to drive, walked her down the aisle at her wedding, held her while she cried through her divorce. And now she was photographing me unconscious, drugged, building evidence for a conservatorship petition. My hands shook, my chest felt tight. For exactly 10 minutes, I let myself feel the full weight of the betrayal. Then I poured another bourbon, drank it slowly, and called my attorney. "Martin," I said when he answered, "I need you to document something. Today's date and time. I am Justice Catherine Walsh, retired. I am 71 years old, and I am of completely sound mind and capacity. I have reason to believe someone is attempting to file a conservatorship petition against me under false pretenses. I'm voluntarily submitting to a capacity evaluation, and I want everything on the record." Silence. Then, "Catherine, who? I'll tell you everything when this is over. But Martin, if anyone files conservatorship documents with my signature or without my explicit consent, I want you to challenge them immediately. And I want a complete neuropsychological evaluation on record showing that I'm competent. Consider it done. I'll have papers drafted today. One more thing. Contact the Board of Bar Overseers. I may need to file a grievance against an attorney. Possibly my own daughter." Another pause. "Jesus. Catherine. Just have everything ready." The capacity evaluation was scheduled for December 3rd. Jennifer had found a neuropsychologist, Dr. Rebecca Martinez, who specialized in geriatric assessments. Jennifer didn't know that Dr. Martinez had testified in my courtroom 4 times, didn't know that I'd ruled on several of her evaluations. Didn't know that Dr. Martinez had sent me a thank you note after I'd ruled in favor of her recommendation in a particularly contentious guardianship case. The medical community is smaller than people think, and judicial reputation outlasts retirement. The day before the evaluation, I did something I hadn't done in 2 years. I called my former law clerk, David Park, who was now a probate magistrate. "Justice Walsh," he said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. "To what do I owe the honor?" "David, I need a favor. If something happens to me in the next week, I need you to check my safe deposit box at Eastern Bank. There's a letter inside with instructions. Everything's documented." "Ma'am, what's going on?" "Insurance, David." "Just insurance." "Probably nothing." "You didn't teach me to believe in probably nothing. You taught me that when a pattern emerges, investigate it. Then trust that I'm investigating. And trust that I have a plan. I've never known you not to have a plan. But be careful. You're not in a courtroom anymore. You can't control every variable." "No," I agreed. "But I can control enough." The evaluation itself was scheduled for 9 a.m. at a medical office in Back Bay. Jennifer and Derek sat in the waiting room while Dr. Martinez conducted the assessment. 3 hours of cognitive testing, memory recall, executive function, judgment capacity. "Can you draw me a clock showing 3:15? Dr. Martinez asked. I drew it perfectly, then intentionally made the 6 slightly crooked. "Can you count backwards from 100 by 7s? I did it flawlessly until 93, then paused. "Sorry, where was I? Can you name these 3 objects?" She'd shown me a pencil, a watch, and a book at the start of the session. The pencil and was it a cup? No, a watch. And a book? I made my voice uncertain. I performed perfectly on the complex questions. Struggled just enough on the simple ones to be concerning. showed cognitive capacity for legal and financial decisions, but displayed just enough memory issues to make Jennifer's case look plausible. When we finished, Dr. Martinez stepped out to give Jennifer and Derek an update. I watched through the slightly open door. "Your mother is showing some short-term memory difficulties," Dr. Martinez said carefully. "It's not uncommon at her age. However, I'm not comfortable making a diagnosis of dementia or declaring her incapable based on this evaluation alone." "But she can't remember basic things," Jennifer said. "She asked me 3 times last week if I was coming for Thanksgiving. Memory lapses don't necessarily equal incapacity, Miss Walsh. Your mother answered complex hypothetical questions correctly. Her reasoning is sound. Her judgment appears intact regarding financial and medical decisions." "What about managing her assets?" Derek interjected. "Is she capable of making investment decisions, paying bills?" Dr. Martinez's expression went very professional. "I'm a psychologist, not a financial advisor. If you have concerns about your mother's financial management, you should consult with her attorney and her financial advisor. What I can tell you is that in my clinical opinion, Miss Walsh currently retains capacity for independent decision-making." "Miss Walsh?" Jennifer's voice went sharp. "My mother was a district court judge." "Your mother," Dr. Martinez said slowly, "was Justice Catherine Walsh of the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court. She served on the bench for 30 years, including 5 years on the state's highest court. She's consulted on dozens of legal capacity cases. She's Justice Catherine Walsh, also known in the legal community as the Iron Gavel." The silence was profound. "I think there's been a misunderstanding," Dr. Martinez continued. "Justice Walsh, would you like to join us?" I walked out, standing straighter than I had in months, met Jennifer's eyes directly. "Hello, sweetheart. Doctor Martinez has been very thorough. I appreciate her professionalism." "Mom, you never told me about that nickname." Jennifer's voice was small. "You never asked. You knew I was a judge. I suppose after I retired, you just thought of me as Mom, the woman who makes Thanksgiving dinner and sends birthday cards." I kept my voice gentle. "Not the woman who presided over 3,000 cases and wrote 200 judicial opinions." Derek had gone pale. He was smart enough to realize what this meant. "But you've been so forgetful lately," Jennifer said. "The parking garage, the phone calls." "Jennifer," I kept my voice level, "I'm 71, not 91. I'm allowed to be distracted occasionally. It doesn't mean I've lost capacity." I paused. "And I know about the chicken piccata with benzodiazepines. I recognize the symptoms. I've seen that presentation 100 times in my courtroom." Her face went white. "I'm not incompetent, Jennifer. I'm not declining. I'm not confused." I pulled out my phone, opened the folder I'd created. "I'm a retired Supreme Court justice who's been documenting every concerning conversation, every instance of you letting yourself into my house without permission, every photograph taken while I was unconscious. We weren't." Derek started. "Save it. I'm a judge who recognized the pattern. Your history in Florida, the 3 previous investigations, the sealed settlements with elderly victims, the same attorney you've used in every case." I looked at Derek. "You're good, Mr. Mitchell, but you made one mistake. You targeted someone who spent 30 years evaluating evidence and spotting fraud." I turned to Jennifer. 3 months of surveillance footage, financial documents you photographed without my knowledge, text messages between you and Derek discussing my decline and how to protect my assets, and a very interesting analysis of Derek's background showing this isn't his first time attempting elder exploitation. Derek grabbed his jacket. "I don't have to listen to this." "No, but you will have to answer to the Attorney General's office. I've already filed a complaint with the Elder Protection Unit. They've been building their case for the past month. You should expect a visit soon." "You're bluffing," Derek said. "You're just a paranoid old woman trying to—" "Dr. Martinez," I said calmly, "in your professional opinion, do I present as paranoid or delusional?" "Not remotely," Dr. Martinez said. "In fact, Justice Walsh, if you need me to testify to your cognitive capacity in any legal proceeding, I'd be happy to provide a comprehensive evaluation and report. Pro bono, given your service to the Commonwealth." Jennifer sank into a chair. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I didn't. Derek said you'd be happier with support, that we were helping you." I was just so worried about you being alone after Dad died. Were you worried when you drugged me? When you stole my spare key? When you photographed my medical records? I sat down next to her. Jennifer, if you needed money, if you were in financial trouble, why didn't you just ask me? Her eyes filled with tears. I owe $200,000. The investments failed. The firm let me go. I couldn't tell you. You'd be so disappointed. More disappointed than this? She flinched. Your father was the kindest man I ever knew. When he died, I promised him I'd look after you. My voice caught. Did you really think I'd abandon you because of bad financial decisions? I was ashamed. So you decided to have me declared incompetent instead? I shook my head. Jennifer, shame is temporary. Bar discipline follows you forever. Filing a fraudulent conservatorship petition is grounds for suspension or disbarment. 2 weeks later, I sat in my study with Martin Ross, my attorney. The Board of Bar Overseers is offering Jennifer a consent agreement, he said. 6-month suspension, ethics training, supervised practice for 2 years when she's reinstated. She has to make full disclosure of her relationship with Derek Mitchell and cooperate with the AG's investigation. I pulled a dead leaf from my orchid plant. And Derek? Arrested yesterday. Turns out there was an outstanding warrant in Rhode Island for identity theft. Plus, the AG's building a case for conspiracy to commit elder exploitation. They found 2 other current cases where he was working the same scheme. What about Jennifer? Criminally, I mean. Martin hesitated. That's up to you. She cooperated fully once Derek was arrested. Turned over all the text messages, admitted to the key theft and the photographing of documents. But she maintains she thought she was helping you, that Derek convinced her you needed support. I thought about Thomas, about the promises I'd made, about the daughter who'd been a brilliant law student before debt and desperation and a skilled con artist had twisted her judgment. I want her in therapy, I said. Real therapy with a licensed psychologist who specializes in financial trauma and manipulation. I want her in a debt restructuring program. I want her to sell her Brookline condo, move somewhere she can actually afford, and work her way out of this hole. That's not a legal requirement I can impose. No, but I can impose it as a condition of not filing criminal charges. She violated my trust. She drugged me. She tried to strip me of my autonomy. I looked at him. But I'm not interested in destroying her. I'm interested in her learning from this. In her becoming the attorney her father would have been proud of. You're more forgiving than most people would be. I'm not forgiving, I said. I'm strategic. Sending her to prison doesn't fix anything. She comes out with a record, no ability to practice law, more debt. She falls right back into the same pattern. I touched another leaf. This way, she has a chance. If she takes it. Jennifer came to see me 3 months later. She'd lost weight, had shadows under her eyes, looked younger and older at the same time. Mom, she said from my doorstep, I don't expect you to let me in. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. For all of it. You deserved so much better. I looked at her for a long moment. Are you in therapy? 3 times a week. Dr. Chen says I have codependency issues and poor boundary recognition. Apparently, I'm a prime target for manipulation because I'm desperate for external validation. She laughed without humor. She's terrifying. Kind of reminds me of you in court, actually. Smart therapist. I sold the condo. Moved to a 1-bedroom in Somerville. My debt's down to $160. I'm working as a contract attorney, document review. It's humbling, but it's honest work. And Derek? Blocked. Deleted. Testified against him at his preliminary hearing. He's looking at 3 to 5 years. She met my eyes. Mom, I know you have no reason to trust me. I know I destroyed everything we had. But I want you to know I'm working on it. On being better. On being someone Dad would be proud of. I opened the door wider. I made tea. It's cold today. Come sit by the fire. Are you sure? I'm a judge. I've seen people rehabilitate from worse than this. The question is whether you're willing to do the work. We sat in my study, drinking tea, talking about nothing important. Her new apartment, the document review work, the book she was reading about financial psychology. Dr. Martinez said you used to be called the Iron Gavel, she said eventually. Why didn't you ever tell me? I considered my answer. After your father died, you were so angry. At the cancer, at the doctors who couldn't save him, at God, at me sometimes for not being able to fix it. I didn't want you to see me as Justice Walsh, the judge everyone was afraid to argue in front of. I wanted to just be Mom. Who made you soup when you were sick and taught you to parallel park? I never knew that was intentional. But Jennifer, I need you to understand something. I may have hidden my professional reputation, but I never stopped being that person. I didn't survive 30 years on the bench by being weak or naive or easily fooled. When you underestimated me, when you assumed I was just a confused old woman, you forgot that age doesn't erase competence, it just adds experience. She nodded slowly. I won't forget again. Good, because I'm still the iron gavel. I'm just retired, and retirement doesn't mean I've lost my edge. It just means I'm more selective about where I use it. We sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Jennifer said, "Do you think Dad would forgive me? I think your father would be disappointed, but I also think he'd be proud that you're taking responsibility and trying to fix it. That's all anyone can do, Jennifer. Acknowledge the mistake. Make amends. Do better. Are we okay? Will we ever be okay? That depends on you, on whether you follow through, on whether you become someone trustworthy again." I looked at her. "But I'm not giving up on you. Your father wouldn't have, and neither will I." 8 months later, I got a call from David Park. "Justice Walsh, I have a favor to ask." "Name it." "I'm teaching a judicial education course on elder abuse recognition for new probate judges. Would you be willing to come speak? Share what happened? You want me to tell a room full of judges that my own daughter tried to have me declared incompetent? I want you to tell them how you recognized the pattern, how you documented everything, and how you protected yourself. Elder exploitation is epidemic, Catherine. Most victims don't have your legal background or resources. But if judges know what to look for, we can help prevent it." So I did. I stood in front of 30 newly appointed judges and told them about chicken piccata with benzodiazepines, about financial documents photographed while I slept, about the slow, careful building of a decline narrative, about how even a Supreme Court justice can be targeted if the perpetrator is skilled enough and the family member is desperate enough. "The key," I said, "is documentation. If you suspect something, document it. If a petitioner seems too eager, investigate. If the alleged incapacitated person seems perfectly lucid but family insists otherwise, dig deeper. We're judicial officers. We have subpoena power, investigative authority, and the obligation to protect vulnerable people." A young judge raised his hand. "But what if we're wrong? What if we damage a family relationship based on suspicion?" "What if you're right?" I countered, "and you do nothing?" Elder exploitation leads to poverty, loss of autonomy, preventable harm. Yes, be careful. Be thorough. But don't assume that education or professional accomplishment protects someone from being victimized. In fact, those can make them better targets. The elderly professional with substantial assets is exactly who these predators look for. After the presentation, 3 judges approached me. Each had a case that seemed questionable, a petitioner who seemed too eager, a conservatorship over someone who appeared perfectly capable, a pattern of family members isolating the elder from other relatives. "Document it," I told each of them. "Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, investigate. You're not overreacting. You're protecting someone who needs protection." That night, I called Jennifer. "How's the debt restructuring going?" "Down to 120. Making progress. I'm hoping to be at under 100 by year end." "Good. Listen, I need your help with something." "Anything, Mom." "I'm working with the Massachusetts Bar Association on continuing legal education about elder financial abuse. We need someone who can speak from the other side, someone who can explain how it happened, how the manipulation works. Would you be willing to share your story?" Long silence. "You want me to stand up in front of other lawyers and admit I tried to exploit my own mother? I want you to help prevent it from happening to someone else. You have insight, Jennifer. You understand what vulnerability looks like from the inside. That's valuable. I don't know if I can. Think about it. No pressure. But I believe your father would appreciate you turning your worst mistake into something that helps others." Another pause. Okay. Yeah, I'll do it. 4 months later, we presented together at a Massachusetts Bar Association CLE program, me with the judicial perspective, Jennifer with the psychological one. The auditorium was packed with 300 attorneys. I convinced myself I was helping her, Jennifer told them. That's how it works. You don't wake up one day and decide to exploit your mother. It happens slowly. Someone tells you she's declining. Someone shows you evidence that confirms what you want to believe. Someone convinces you that taking control of her assets is actually protecting her. And before you know it, you're drugging her dinner and photographing her financial documents and telling yourself it's for her own good. People asked questions. How do you recognize when concern becomes control? How do you protect elderly clients from exploitation by family members? What are the red flags? We didn't have all the answers, but we had our story. And stories, I've learned in 30 years of jurisprudence, are more powerful than statutes. Today, I'm 72. My orchids are thriving. Jennifer comes to dinner every Sunday, and we're rebuilding trust, slowly, carefully, like reconstructing a complex legal argument. It takes time. It takes evidence. It takes mutual commitment to the process. David Park and I have started a judicial education initiative, training probate judges to recognize and investigate elder exploitation. We've worked on 23 cases so far, prevented 4 inappropriate conservatorships, helped prosecute 3 caregivers for financial exploitation, connected 8 families with resources before the abuse escalated. I'm not on the bench anymore, but I'm still using my skills, still evaluating evidence, still protecting people who need protection, still teaching younger attorneys and judges what 3 decades of experience taught me. They used to call me the Iron Gavel because I was tough, precise, and unwavering in my courtroom. Now they call me the Iron Gavel because I'm still fighting for justice, still refusing to let people get away with exploiting the vulnerable, still proving that age is just a number and experience is the sharpest tool in any arsenal.